Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to another episode of the Ant Marino Podcast. On today's episode, I have Leigh Schutzky, and Leigh is a friend of mine. We're virtual friends, so we've never actually met in real life, but we're a part of a mastermind together. And then from there we became virtual friends. And Leigh is a certified life coach, and she helps people reach freedom from alcohol, so that, they can write their new life story, which is one that's not limited by alcohol or the past. So it's, her work is around helping people, if they want to quit drinking or stop drinking altogether for whatever reason that may be. It's a really, really interesting episode, guys. We talk about, her story and how she got there and, what her work entails. And we go into, from her experience, what she's found to be the major kind of reasons why people overuse alcohol, and also, addictions in general. And I actually, because addictions are, they're a funny thing, because we hear on the TV and through society and all that kind of stuff that addiction is, just drugs and alcohol, right? But we can actually be addicted to so many other things like food, exercise, porn, sex, so many things, our phones, right? We can all be addicted to a different thing. And it's tricky because let's say that you're addicted to sex, that isn't deemed kind of bad in society in a way, right? Maybe for women, a lot of women may get called whores or sluts or whatever like that, which is very unfortunate. But yeah, like if a man has a lot of sex, he doesn't get called that, but it's not looked as an addiction, right? And if you were to tell another man that you were addicted to sex, they would say, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Like, and I know this because I've spoken to people about this in my past. I would say things like, "Well, I wish I had that problem because I get no sex," or like, "What do you mean you're addicted to sex? You're just getting a lot of sex. I wish I was getting a lot of sex." So, the thing is, the addiction, the act of what's actually happening isn't what's bad, but it's why it's being done. And I actually share something personal about myself, what I'm addicted to, and something that I've kind of been going through. I'm not going to mention it right now, so you'll have to listen to the whole episode to find out what that is. But it's actually the first time I've ever shared this kind of addiction or problem online before. Actually, I have shared it with people in real life, but not a lot. So then basically throughout the episode, we then talk about how she helps people overcome drinking, and she also has a bit of a different philosophy around addiction. Super intriguing and interesting episode, guys. I'm not going to talk too much about it, and I'm just going to let you listen to the episode. But I will ask you guys to like and subscribe and, leave a comment wherever you're watching or listening to this. And if you have an option to, do a 5-star review and also a written review, that would be really, really great, because it'll push the podcast, through the algorithm to more people, and it'll grow and expand, and it'll really help me out to grow and expand this platform and this podcast. So, I'm not sponsored by anybody. I don't make any money off this, but I would really like it to, come into more people's ears. And the best way to do that, because I really do want to change the world, is to get it to come come into more people's lives so they can hear it and maybe change their life. So yeah, with that being said, I'll let you get into the episode. Welcome back to another episode of the Ant Marino Podcast. Today I am joined by Leigh Schutzky. Leigh is a certified life coach who helps people reach freedom from alcohol so they can write their life's new story, one not limited by alcohol or the past. She helps people who want to drink less or who want to stop drinking completely, as well as people who've stopped but are still struggling to abstain. Leigh teaches her clients a better, sustainable way, one that doesn't rely on willpower. So welcome to the podcast, Leigh.
Thanks so much, Ant. Great seeing you.
Yeah. Happy that we have made time to do this because, for anybody listening, Leigh and I have met through a mutual kind of meeting that we attend every week. It's like a mastermind, not an Alcohol Anonymous meeting, but a mastermind kind of for purpose-driven individuals. We've been talking about doing this and now it's great to actually sit down and do it. So yeah, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, definitely excited to be here.
Sweet. So first of all, I wanted to start off with kind of asking about your story and how you got into what you do.
Definitely. My whole family has been affected by alcohol. And I think I've talked about this in the call that we've been in before. That includes my parents, my siblings, nieces and nephews. And I actually first started looking for help in the 90s. And I looked at more of the traditional options, quote unquote, like 12-step programs. I looked at rehab. I even tried hypnosis. And none of them were a fit for me. And at that time, I just wanted to drink less. And it was pretty much either you labeled yourself an alcoholic or you didn't. That was it. And I was like, well, I'm not an alcoholic. I did not like that term or that labeling. But I did keep progressing, drinking over the years, over drinking, hid it from people. People had no idea. And I finally stopped in 2018. I got to a point, it was just so, self-destructive. I mean, I was drinking a couple bottles of wine a night. I was depressed. I was suicidal. I mean, I was still working full time. And like I said, no one had any idea, but I would basically just go home and pass out. And I was just waiting to die. I'm like, what is the point? There was even a point in my 40s where there was a period of time where like almost every month there'd be a weekend where I would be binge drinking. And then I would be like, in the bathroom every half hour, on the half hour, vomiting. And I'm like, this is going to kill me. Why am I still doing this? But, it's definitely a challenge. So I actually discovered this coaching program afterward. And I did use willpower to stop, and it was miserable. It was pure suffering. And that's where I'm like, I wish I had found this before, because I know it would have made a difference having someone there that could have helped me and could have talked with me fully confidential. But that's really where the suffering comes in, is people trying to, we use that phrase, white knuckle it. And some people aren't familiar with that. And it's like the analogy of like someone who's driving by a liquor store and they're literally like white knuckling, grabbing the steering wheel, resisting not going in. And that's where that term comes from. And that's that concept of willpower. And this is not about that at all. It's really like, it's not just stopping over drinking alcohol. It's, if you just took that away, there still is probably going to be the pain underneath. So it's really helping someone look at what is the pain that they're trying to numb with an external substance like alcohol. And that's really where I help people. I was like, if I can help one person, it's worth it. And I already have clients where they're seeing a difference and they just want to drink less, and it's really helping them take their agency back and not get held back by labels or by societal messaging. Helping them see the messaging that surrounds us, whether it comes from society or family. And that's the kind of stuff that can hold us back. And then helping them learn how to, use tools and shift their mindset to overcome that.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, so are you completely sober now?
I mean, I cook with alcohol occasionally, but I plan for it.
Yeah.
But like, I just don't even think about it. I don't even use the term sober in recovery. Like I said, I don't even think about it that way. I don't count days. I mean, I
Yeah.
stopped sometime in like June 2018, but I don't count days or anything like that because again, to me, that's looking backwards. But like I'm at that point where it's like I can sit at a winery or brewery with friends and it doesn't even bother me.
Yeah.
And
Cool.
that's where I mean, that's where I want people to get to is where they're not suffering like, oh my gosh, I can't be around people if they're drinking, or oh, there's going to be a big old party with alcohol involved. I can't be there. And maybe for sure in the beginning to set up for success, it's maybe not the best to be there, but it's also helping people learn how to course correct. And the big thing is like helping them write it down, learn and move on and have their back in the process. So that's part of it too, is it's all part of life. It's like I use the analogy of like the captain of a ship's vessel. And so if you got a seagoing vessel and there's a wave that comes along and kind of knocks it off course, there is no right or wrong. The captain's just like, okay, we just need to get this back on course, or as tides shift. And so it's the same kind of thing in our lives. If someone gets thrown for a loop and they get a little off course, it's like, okay, how do we course correct? Let's get back on track. And no shame, no judgment. We're so good at shaming and judging ourselves if we struggle with something like alcohol that we don't need to pile on anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've found that we can often shame and judge ourselves so that, we do it before somebody else does it.
Totally.
Because
Oh,
we
yeah.
think what we've done deserves to be shamed and judged. So,
Oh my gosh,
we do it
yes.
before someone else can do it. So when somebody else does do it, then it's okay because we've already done it and we know,
Yeah.
oh yeah, we know we're a piece of shit,
Yeah. Oh yeah, literally every morning I wake up and I'd be like, you're an idiot. Why can't you stop? What is wrong with you? Or fucking moron. I mean, I would berate the evil, vile things I would say to myself every morning when I was trying to stop and I couldn't. It's awful. The inner voice that we can say to ourselves. And like you said, it's like we're just heaping on our own. We don't no one else can even heap on more than we're already doing.
Yeah.
That mental voice,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And it's also like, well, I need to be seen to be shaming myself because
Mm-hmm.
if I don't, then people will think, oh, they don't even care that they're, fucking their life up. And it's like, well, no, they do, but they're just, treating themselves a bit kinder.
Yeah. Yeah. Or again, they just, like I said, my people around me didn't even know because, I hid it so well. And I think that's pretty common that I've talked with people where I've said, if you know someone who's struggling with alcohol, I can help them. And there was like a period of like a month where the people were like, no, I don't know anyone that's got an issue. And I'm like, well, you might. They may just be hiding it really well. I'm like speaking from personal experience. You
Yeah.
probably do. You just don't know it.
Yeah. So that leads me into something that I wanted to ask is, do you think that you were like a fully functioning kind of, well, you said you didn't like to use the term alcoholic. Is that,
Mm.
do you still not like to use the term alcoholic?
It's interesting because I really struggle with the phrase because it's a label. It is just a word. The word itself is neutral. But I see a lot of people that label themselves alcoholic and they use it almost like to keep themselves stuck. Now, others, it's fine. And part of it is this is what some of that messaging has been around like AA is that, saying you're an alcoholic. And it's interesting because there's actually a statistic out there. It's either from like the CDC, which is in the United States is the Center for Disease Control, or the National Institutes of Health, but it basically says that of people that struggle with alcohol use disorder, only 10% actually qualify for severe alcohol use disorder, which is technically the clinical diagnosis. Alcoholic isn't even a diagnosis, and some people don't even realize that. So that means that 9 out of 10 people that struggle with alcohol don't. So technically, yeah, I probably would have fit into the definition, but it's like, it didn't matter, it didn't help. And so that's the thing. It's like, I don't even want to, even look at that. It's like, let's look ahead and look to the life that someone wants to create, regardless of what their past. And that's why I'm saying we don't want to be limited by the past. It's like, how can we help write a new story It's not about labels. It's not about numbers. It's not about counting days. It's really looking ahead and releasing that messaging. So again, some people say, yeah, I was an alcoholic and I've been sober for 20, 30 years. And it's like, great. If it worked for them and they did this 12-step program, that's amazing. Good for them. There's a lot of people though that have tried traditional approaches and it didn't work for them. So it's just nice to know that there's another option out there with this one-on-one coaching. So
Yeah. Okay. So how did you kind of, well, you can't say label it because you didn't want to put a label on it, but like if you were to say you were fully functioning, would you say that you were fully functioning in your life, but also overusing alcohol?
I was fully functioning in the sense that I was holding down a job and I had friendships and relationships, but my destructive patterns in my relationships were getting out of control. And like I said, toward the end, besides work and taking care of my dog, I really wasn't functioning in relationships per se.
Yeah. Okay.
Again, just kind of just hanging out, like I said, really isolating, staying at home, or just over drinking at night. So no, it had gotten to that point. And I finally was like, I had an exceptionally bad evening. I was driving. Thank goodness I didn't hurt anybody. I mean, it was bad. It was blackout. And I was like, if I had been arrested, I would have to stop because I'd be in jail and I'd be stopping. And it's like, it just was, again, I had tried numerous times, but like I said, relying on willpower truly is suffering. It's like, it was like months of suffering. I just locked myself away from everything besides work. So it was just, I'm like, man, if I can help one person not have to go through that, And like, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, would you say that your audience generally is maybe a slightly, what do you think like the demographics of your audience is? It's maybe 20s, 30s, 40s?
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah. It's mainly around 30s, but does go into the 20s and also the 40s. Yeah.
Yeah. And the reason I ask is, like I said, when I first started looking for help in the 90s, I was probably in my late 20s. So it's like, I knew that I wanted to drink less, but the options that were out there weren't a fit for me. Because again, it was either all or nothing. And so that's the thing, is if someone's listening to your podcast, and really it's not even about having a problem with alcohol, it's about, is my over drinking creating a net negative result in my life? Because people will ask me, well, how do you know someone needs help? And I'm like, well, it's always up to the person. And it's not whether or not they have a problem, quote unquote. It's, are they creating a net negative result in their life from over drinking alcohol? And if that's the effect, it's a net negative for them, then sure, we can look at it. If they're like, nope, I have a beer after work at night, I come home and I have a couple drinks on the weekend, I'm fine. Great. Awesome. So that's really what it is. It's not about having a problem. It's about, is it a net negative result in the life of that person? And like I said, if someone's listening to this and they're a little earlier in the process, and they're like, yeah, I'm kind of over drinking, I would like help. It's like, for sure, would love to help them, nip it in the bud sooner.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's hard for people that are stuck in it to realize that it is causing a problem. Because, well, from what I think is because they're in it, and they've been in it for so long, they haven't seen life in another way. So so they think what they're doing is fine.
And there is an extreme point, like you talk about, where it's like people that truly are extremely using, if they're like, no, I really am an alcoholic, and they want, a 12-step program or rehab program, totally appropriate. This is for the 9 out of 10 where it's not that extreme. And you're right. People have to, I was listening to someone, they were talking about how it's just even the importance of asking for help or making the decision to reach out and ask for help. And like you said, a lot of times we're so in it, we don't even realize that options are available. And I never asked for help at the end because, again, I felt so much shame. I'm like, oh, I don't want to burden people with what I'm going through.
Yeah.
That's the thought errors that are going on in my mind. And so I agree. It's, I think that's part of the challenge, is people are struggling and suffering in silence because the people around them may not know.
Yeah, for sure. And that, what you just said there about being a burden, that is like such a key thing for people struggling, with mental health stuff and,
Yep.
whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
They think talking about it is looking like, they don't want to be seen to be depressed because people will judge them. Oh, they're just a depresso, or they'll,
Mm-hmm.
this isn't, I'm not
Yeah.
saying it's for everybody, but there are some people that do talk like that. And then
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately that holds people back from speaking their truth and getting help because they're scared of, looking like a depresso or being an inconvenience to somebody,
Exactly. Yep. We think we're going
Um,
to be an inconvenience for sure.
yeah.
And that was the thing is you talked about mental health and like my mom was bipolar, which is manic depressive. And one of my brothers, he had clinical depression and he struggled with alcohol and he committed suicide. And it's like, it's that same thing of, at least in the States and America, the message from the media is if you're not happy 100% of the time, something's wrong with you. You should be happy all the time, which is not true. And if something's wrong with you because you're not happy all the time, you should do something like drink or shop or eat or all these over consuming of something external, watch TV, go shop online, look at porn.
Mm.
And so part of it is helping clients realize that societal messaging that you should be happy all the time. If you're not, something's wrong. It's like, well, no, life is a spectrum of emotions. And I love the analogy of like the color palette, like on a painting, like a color palette. All the colors of our life is the full spectrum of emotions. And that's how we can create, paint the full canvas of our life, the 100%. But it's getting comfortable with the 50-50, the range and the spectrum of the emotions that we have, and learning how to sit and feel with them, process them, release them, which I think, we've talked about in the weekly call, the purpose-driven individuals, is that importance of releasing those emotions and releasing those feelings and processing them through and realize we'll get to the other side. We don't have to reach for a drink to numb that feeling that's happening.
100%.
Yeah.
And I don't watch, the news or free to air TV, so or the radio, so I don't hear a lot of the messaging. And the reason that I stopped,
Right?
doing that was because the messaging was, a lot around fear and all that kind of stuff. And but for sure, the same as America, people think that they have to be happy all the time, and there's no messaging about saying that being sad is okay, but there's lots of messaging around people shopping and spending money with smiles on their faces. So without actually saying, if you want to be happy, go shopping, it's a subliminal messaging
Very
to
much
say,
so.
well, they're happy, I need to be doing what they're doing.
Yep.
And you can even fall into that, even if you don't see the messaging on the TV and the radio. It's just kind of a human nature kind of thing. For me, I used to be really, really unhappy, and I had cars, I had a house, I had lots of money, blah blah blah, but I just felt empty and unhappy. And then I would look to my mates, and when I hung around with them, they would seem pretty happy. So I'm like, oh, fuck, I need to be doing what they're doing, right?
Totally.
Which is
keep up with the Joneses.
Yeah, exactly. Like one of my mates was, just always renovating stuff around his house and keeping busy all the time, flat out, right? So I thought, well, that's what I need to do, and nothing changed,
Yeah.
And I would look to other people and go like, oh, well, they're doing that, I need to do this. But none of it made me happier. It just pulled me further away because
exactly
I wasn't being true to myself.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. It's just obscuring the under whatever is underneath. And that's a great example. Your friend who was doing like working on his house all the time. That's even another thing someone can do. Someone can overwork, like people, that work all the time, 40, 60, 70 hours. And it's like, they may be overworking because they're trying to avoid feeling emotion. And to your point, the messaging, even if we're not listening to the news or watching TV, it's on billboards. Like you drive down the street and you can see it.
Yeah.
It's just pervasive. So it's and until we start like realizing it, we're like, whoa, it's like you said, it's everywhere. And just that whole thing of like someone holding up a beer or someone shopping and they're all smiling and they're all happy or they're eating the hamburger.
Yeah.
And the items themselves aren't inherently wrong or right. There's no moral value to the act of taking a drink or eating a potato chip or eating a chocolate chip cookie or, alcohol is neutral, food is neutral. There is no right or wrong. But the messaging we get is so like, if you're not doing this, you're bad. You should be drinking or you should be eating or shopping so you feel better. Or, oh, you're over drinking. This is bad. You should, and that's where a lot of that shame comes in. Or, oh, like you said, your example of people, we don't want to talk about mental illness because we feel like it's going to be a burden on somebody. And I think one thing with the pandemic, it's really opened up, there is more opportunity now for virtual connection. I mean, that's how we connected, was virtually with the group, and more people are sharing their stories where they're talking about these things of the impact of mental health in their lives or issues that maybe they've struggled with, and they're sharing their story. And so I think that is a benefit, is that now there's more resources available to people across the globe and being able to connect virtually. So that is huge. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And technology has been so good for that throughout the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, from your experience, what have you found to be the major reasons people overuse alcohol?
It is a combination, what I've seen, of messaging from like family. A lot of times it's messages that they heard growing up. Like I had one client where she talked about how her mom basically said, if you have any kind of drink of alcohol, you're an alcoholic. And her dad really struggled with alcohol. So that was the message she got in family. Some of it is that societal messaging, like, ooh, you want to celebrate with alcohol.
Yeah.
So I think really the big thing is the messaging is alcohol fixes things. I know that's what another client, her thought is, alcohol will fix this. Alcohol fixes everything. And so I think the common thread is that it's just these thought errors that people have, and really helping them tease apart these beliefs or these stories and really question it, but question it from a place of curiosity and awareness, and basically saying, is that thought still serving you? Is it still useful? If it's not, let's really tease this out and understand where it came from and how we unravel it and look at what is a different way to maybe view this, or a different thought that is going to serve you or is going to be useful. So first off, it's just like the messaging that people have, the stories that they've, kind of internalized. And they think that these stories are factual, that they're absolutely true. And it's like, well, let's look at that. Is that really serving you? Let's question that. So that I would say would be the common theme, because and then they're using alcohol again to numb something that they don't want to feel.
Yeah. So I remember working away, on a civil construction site, which is building a dam, and a couple of the supervisors, I went round to their place one night for a drink. We were at the pub, and then we went back to their place for a few more drinks. And this is when I used to, drink way too much. And then they brought out a bottle of vodka or something, and they started drinking it straight. And then I was like, Jesus Christ, like you guys are tipping it in. And then they're like, yeah, we do this every night. I was like, every night? And they're like, well, yeah, working a job like us, we have to. And I'm like, oh, okay. That's a weird belief.
Yep.
It's a really weird belief.
Yeah.
Pretty sure there's other people out there that don't do this, but anyway. But I had all my own beliefs as well, right?
Yeah.
Which to numb, like you said, is a massive
Mm-hmm.
one. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Well, and the other one, like we think that, like definitely like there were times like in college and afterwards, like I thought, yeah, or celebrating and raging on with alcohol. It's amazing. It's a party. It's like, and then it's like, no, it's not. The next morning, it's like
yeah.
your body's paying for it. And it's like, but we think again, we see in commercials, people are drinking, they're partying, they're happy. And it's like,
Mm.
and then you don't see the rest of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly right.
And
Uh,
that's one of the things when I'm talking with people, it's like it can get so heavy, the concept, but it's like trying to bring in the laughter and the reality of like this is just part of being human. It's like it's this concentrated substance, and yes, we've done things and maybe we're like, oh my gosh, that's not what I wanted to do, and it's like it's okay. Let's look at it and be like, all right, how do we start to unravel it?
yeah.
Like your stories of like you being surrounded where they're doing this every night, you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I was at that time, I was actually drinking every night. I was having maybe 4 to 6, pre-mixed cans.
Mhm.
Um, but I wasn't, drinking another half a bottle of vodka afterwards, and I'm just like,
Right.
oh, Jesus.
Right.
It
You're
was
like,
kind of, it was
whoa.
like, whoa. Yeah. It was a bit eye
Yeah.
opening. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Um, so, uh, with, with what you do, is it just about, um, kind of overcoming the overuse of alcohol, or is it also like, would you say it's an addiction?
I actually we look at the overuse, and there's actually three kinds of responses that could be going on that could be triggering the over drinking. So one of them can be the physical response where the body, like you get a dopamine hit, which is what's going on in the brain. So like when we eat something concentrated, like concentrated sugar, or we drink alcohol, which is concentrated, even like drugs like heroin, that's a dopamine hit. That is a physical response in the brain. So for sure, there's that, but there's also habitual. So there's conditioning. So the example of someone that comes home from work, they get in, they walk to the fridge, they crack open a beer.
Mm,
It's almost mindless because it's just habitual. Or hey, I drive home, I stop at the liquor store, I buy this, I go home. Like the ritual we talk about, like rituals, like for me, like the wine bottle, opening the wine
mm,
bottle, popping the cork, pouring the glass.
mm,
So there's habitual. And then the other part of it is, are we actually numbing emotions? So there's actually like three different kinds of responses we can look at and see. And it's more just to kind of see where someone really can catch themselves the most, because someone may really be more operating on habit where it's, I come home from work, I walk into the kitchen, I open the fridge, I grab a drink. And it's just become so ingrained. It's almost like that conditioning. It's like trying to create that awareness and then create the pause, the space between walking in the door and grabbing the drink and just like starting to create that space. Or if it's truly like someone's like, I feel stressed or I feel really anxious or I feel really angry and I just don't like this feeling. And then I'm grabbing this drink to numb that emotion.
mm,
And part of it, like when it's a physical response, like if it's a dopamine response, where it's truly our subconscious is looking for that reward. It's like our brains, they'll seek rewards, avoid pain, and trying to be as efficient as possible. Our survivor brain. So using our human brain to be like, all right, I'm going to plan in advance, and I'm going to plan for this because I know my survivor brain is going to kick in for this.
mm.
So that's kind of what we talk about. Is there's, like I said, those three different kinds of responses
Yeah.
that people can kind of experience.
Um, so I'm not sure. Have you looked into like addiction across the board to, all addictions? And have you found there's like a common thing with all addictions?
I haven't looked at it that way, but like I said, I have looked at the concept of, are we over consuming something to basically hide from our lives?
Mm,
So it's looking to something external, thinking it's going to change our inner life experience. And like I said, it could be food, it could be alcohol, it could be
mm,
another substance, it can be work, it can be an activity, it can be TV. So
mm,
it's really more looking at it that way. Why am I over consuming? Why am I turning to this to numb what I'm dealing with on the inside? And like I
mm,
said, if someone feels like they truly do have an addiction and they're like, I want to go to rehab, or I want to do great, go for it. That's awesome. Or you want to work for a therapist if they're dealing with this significant trauma, for sure, go work with somebody clinical. But I think, again, like I said, in the 90s, it was either you said you were an alcoholic or there was no help available for you. So it's that thing of, like I said, the stat of like, well, 90% of the people out there are not in that category of severe alcohol use disorder. They wouldn't qualify, quote unquote, as addicted to alcohol or an alcoholic. So that means 9 out of 10 people, they're not in that space.
Yeah.
And again, that's just around alcohol. I don't know about like the other substances, but
yeah. I've never actually admitted this publicly before, but I have spoken to a couple of people about it. Not therapists, but just like kind of friends or cousins, or even my clients. I have spoken to them about them because I like to use it, to let them know that they're, then they're human as well. And well, I'm human as well. And it's kind of, it's normal to do this kind of thing. And so for me, watching porn can be an addiction for me. And, it's funny because you don't want to admit that you have a porn addiction, because if you tell someone that you don't watch porn, especially a male, they think, what's wrong with you? What are you gay or something? It's like, well, no, if I was gay, which it doesn't matter if I was, but gay people can still watch porn. There's gay porn,
Right.
But yeah, like what I've found when I turn to the porn is that I'm lacking connection. I'm lacking human connection. So because like love and connection is one of the core 6 human needs, right? And when you don't have that and you're lacking that, for me, what I found is I turn to the porn for the connection, right? Because even though it's not me doing it, but my brain is like, oh, like that's enticing, that makes me feel a certain way, which is not necessarily connection, but I turn to that thing because I think it's going to give me connection, or to numb out, not feeling lonely or feeling unconnected. So
well, and that's a great example, because using that as an example, using porn as an example, porn is like a concentrated version of sex, and your brain may be getting that dopamine response when you're viewing it visually. And like you said, is it also something where I'm trying not to feel the emotions that are going on underneath? And then again, the question is it creating a net negative result in your life? If you're watching porn, it's like, okay, if someone's like, I'm watching, hundreds of hours of porn and I'm not able to have any connections with anybody or any kind of emotional relationship or romantic relationship with a partner, then it might be like, they might say, yeah, I think it is creating a net negative result. But someone else may say, no, I just watch porn occasionally, or my partner and I watch porn together. Or no, I just come home and I want to chill out and I want to watch porn and it's fine. And it's like, no, it's not creating a net negative result for them in their life. And that's really where that question fits in. And that's where each individual can say, is it creating a net negative result for me or not? But that's a really good example. That's another example of turning to something that's concentrated and over consuming something like porn. And our brain's like, yeah, this is great. Bring me more.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. And the thing is, if someone was to ask me like, well, how much do you watch porn? And it would sound like not a lot, because I'd be like, oh, once a night, or maybe a couple of times a night, or maybe I'll have a day off and then, do it again. And people think, well, that's not really that bad. But from what I've kind of analyzed in myself, is it's not so much about how many times you're doing it. It's the reason why I'm doing it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you can watch porn. Like porn can be, you can do it in a healthy way. right? Whether it's by yourself or with your partner, whatever, but it's not healthy when you're doing it to, like we've been speaking about, to numb and run away, you know?
Yeah. And that's the thing, is if it's creating that net negative result of there's an emotion underneath or a feeling underneath that's not being processed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, if I'm just looking at porn and watching porn because I don't want to feel the emotion that's going on underneath, that's where it's like, is this creating a net negative result?
Yeah.
And again, for each person, their answer is different. But that's where, again, it's not about whether or not it's a problem. It's what is it creating for that person in their life in terms of the result that they're experiencing.
Yeah.
And that's why I try to help people, just kind of when I'm working with people with alcohol, help them like release, again, a lot of the societal messaging. It's like, ooh, it's a problem. It's like, I don't even think of it that way. How is that helpful? Let's look at it another way.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. So I wanted to go back to the start.
Yeah.
Would you be able to touch on how you actually overcame it yourself?
Yeah. Well, like I said, I did use willpower, and like I said, it was miserable. I mean, I suffered for months. It was awful because, like I said, I was like, if I had been stopped and pulled over and put in jail, I would have had to stop. But I mean, I had tried for years. Like I said, I had looked for alternatives, and I was like, and I use these tools, these coaching tools. Like I said, when I plan to drink, when I plan to use alcohol in cooking, it's like I'm planning that I'm cooking with alcohol, like wine or whatever, or brandy or something in a recipe, because I love to cook. And it's like, so it's using my human brain to basically say, okay, I'm planning this. And same thing if I go like to a winery with friends. But for sure, in the beginning, it was white knuckling it. It was miserable, like I said. And I was like, and like I said, I didn't discover this till after. I'm like, wow. I was like, man, if I could have a person one-on-one helping me, just talking through and giving, the techniques and the tools, and even questioning so many beliefs that I grew up with, like concepts of like one of the things that I struggle with was, we were raised where if you say you're going to do something, you're absolutely going to do it. And so I always expected, well, other adults, if they say they're going to do something, they should do it, and try to control them. And why aren't they doing this? And I would stress myself out and be a control freak, and realizing like this concept of like adults can do and say whatever they want. I mean, they really can. We cannot truly control everybody. And I know we've talked about that when we say that, but really realizing that adults are going to do and say, or not do and say whatever they want, or they're going to say something and not do it. And it's like, and that's okay. And really letting go. So that concept of emotional adulthood, really being like, I'm going to do what I want to do because I want to, and that's good enough. And other people around me are going to do what they want to do. So like that concept of like, you mean adults can say they're going to do something and not do it? Like mind blown, like some basic foundational concepts. Another one that has been really helpful. Like I said, we talked earlier about the concept of, our emotions are a spectrum of 50-50, life is 50-50, and really learning to be okay with feeling all the emotions. And that's what allows us to experience the 100% of our human condition. And like when I'll talk with people, I'll say, it's not about stopping drinking alcohol or reducing how much you're drinking alcohol. It's, are you willing to be comfortable with feeling discomfort? It's like, if we can sit in discomfort with anything, like if we can sit here and be like, all right, I feel the urge to drink, or I feel the urge to watch porn, or I feel the urge to eat this bag of potato chips, or I need to keep working. If we can sit in discomfort and we can explore that, and we can realize we'll come out on the other side, that's like a superpower. We can accomplish anything because all we're feeling is a feeling. And so being willing to feel the discomfort, it's like, that's really where people can take their power back and their agency back and be like, yeah, I'm willing to feel the discomfort and still live my life anyway and be okay with it. So some of those concepts also were incredibly helpful things that it's like, these are things we should be learning in school, learning in high school and college. I mean, these are things our kids should be learning when they're growing up, because what we're told is don't rock the boat, don't be loud. Like I said, I've talked about this before, girls would be seen and not heard. That was a message I heard when I was little. And so it's like all these messages, our children are getting, and no wonder they're lashing out later, because they're basically being told you shouldn't be so much, suppress yourself, numb yourself, quiet
Yeah,
yourself down. And it's like, no wonder they're lashing out and struggling as they grow up.
for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Um, so you spoke about willpower. So pretty much you didn't have anybody to help you go through this. You had
Mm,
to learn it all yourself.
yeah.
And so did you just kind of think, well, I just need to use willpower to overcome this? Is that what kind of went through your head?
What I told myself was I can eat or drink anything but alcohol. That was my thing. It was like to stop. If I was in jail right now, I would be stopped. So
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, I can have as much chocolate I want, or I can drink, eat ice cream or soda or whatever. But it truly was white knuckling it, driving by the liquor store. And the thing is, willpower, we do have willpower, but willpower is finite and willpower is miserable. So it's like
Mm.
typically a lot of times that people, when they struggle with over drinking, they'll get up in the morning, they'll be fine. They have no desire for a drink. They're fine. They're like, oh yeah, no, I never want to drink in the morning. I
Yeah.
never did.
Yeah.
They go to work, they do their thing. But by the end of the day, willpower has waned. Decision fatigue has set in. We're tired.
Yeah.
And so, we're emotionally tired, we're mentally tired, we're physically tired. And that's why trying to rely on willpower to do it can really lead into suffering. And that's why I say if someone has stopped, but they think that willpower is the way to abstain and they're still suffering, it's like, well, then I can help them release that too. Because
Mm.
it's not about using the willpower.
Okay.
It's about actually allowing and sitting with the discomfort and bringing in the emotions. Like willpower, the analogy, I don't know if we've talked about this before, but it's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. So
Mm.
like you're in a pool, you're trying to hold a beach ball underwater, you're trying. That's using willpower to resist. And so instead it's let the beach ball come up above the pool and just sit on top of the water. And that is the concept of allowing, that feeling. And like I love the analogy of like a person in the middle of a pool surrounded by all these beach balls, and every beach ball is an emotion,
Yeah.
and just letting them be there
Yeah.
and just sitting with them. And like you even talked about like meditation. I mean, you're really good with like the meditation, and that's another way that people can tap in and allow those feelings to come up and allow them to come out. So I
Yeah.
think you do a deeper meditation style. For me, it's a little bit more surfacey, but it's very similar concept of sitting there, allow the feeling, process the feeling to release it.
Mm. Um, so, and you spoke about planning. How did you know that planning was going to help you? Planning, to cook with with alcohol.
Oh, this is actually a tool, like I said, that I found in the coaching program. So the concept is using our human brain to plan in advance. If someone wants to just, so that's where if someone wants to just drink less, but they don't want to stop completely, they do a drink plan. We have them do
Oh
a
yeah.
drink plan where it's a week in advance, where they plan out on this day, I'm going to drink. This is how much I'm going to drink. This is what it's going to be. On this other day, I'm not going to drink. And I'm going to plan this for the week.
Mm.
And it's like, maybe they'll be like, yeah, I'm going to plan on Saturday. I'm going to drink a bottle and a half of wine. Okay. Plan for it. Plan your drinking, plan in advance. And then the coaching really fits in where are they able to stay with their plan and are they staying committed to their plan? And it's not about beating themselves up because they didn't follow the plan. It's let's look at what was the thinking that was going on, what was happening, why didn't you follow the plan? Not from a let's beat you up, but let's get curious, because it's really that commitment to yourself as the client. So that's where the planning comes into place.
Gotcha. So
And that's for someone.
you did a coaching program, and
Yeah, after I
and
had
learnt these
stopped, I found
after
this.
you'd
Yeah,
stopped.
after I,
Yeah.
yeah, that's where it's
Okay.
actually
Cool.
a sub component of the life coaching certification that I did, is specifically around stopping over drinking. And this is one of the tools. So if someone basically is like, I just want to stop drinking completely, their drink plan would be they're just not going to drink anything.
Yeah.
But if someone's like, well, I want to reduce how much I'm drinking, they would plan it. And I actually had a client recently, she basically wanted to, for her, it worked to, she just wants to drink less. But for her, she wanted to reset. She's like, I just want to kind of stop for a month and kind of reset. She does want to get back to drinking eventually, but she's like, for her, she wants that kind of jump start for success. I'm like, yeah, we can totally do that. If that works for her, let's do it.
Mm.
So it's also like what works for an individual. They may know based on their past things that have worked well for them in the past. So.
Gotcha. Well, that's kind of what I wanted to lead into next was, how do you help people through your coaching to overcome drinking?
So we always start with where are they at today? We're like, where are they currently and where do they want to be? And then we're like, okay, this is how we would get you there. And I also look at other parts of their life. So not just over drinking, but are there other areas of their life that they may be struggling with as well? Because a lot of times what they're doing in one area, it may be a common pattern in other areas, I should say. So as an example, I actually have a younger client, where we started talking about his schedule first and looking at that first to kind of start having him use the tools and the concepts about where our thoughts are and how our feelings are. And then we're shifting to the over drinking tools. And over drinking, it's that same thing of like, what are the thoughts that we're having that are basically like, I'm drinking. Why am I drinking? What are the feelings? Let's look at what urge is coming up. Why am I having this urge to drink? Where is this coming from? And that's why I said it could be habitual. It could be a feeling. It could be more that dopamine response. And then starting to be used tools of like, let's plan drinking in advance. And if someone's like, I did my plan, but then I didn't follow it, then it's like, all right, write it down, learn and move on. And let's look at that. So it's different kinds of, it's like, let's try these tools and let's do these different things. And then let's coach around what came up when you were using them and where you found things that worked and where you found things that didn't work. But always the client, I mean, you know this too. It's like the client generally has the answer. Like you can ask them like, hey, what do you anticipate is going to be the biggest challenge for you in this process? What do you think is going to be the biggest obstacle? What do you think would be the solution? So asking the client, I love like the concept of like future self, like asking the client, what advice would your future self give you? Look to your future self that you've already achieved the result that you want. Ask your future self, okay, what would your future self tell you about today, about the challenges you're facing today? Because they have those answers.
Yeah.
Asking them those powerful questions.
So if somebody was wanting to stop drinking as much, and then somebody wanted to kind of give it up altogether, would it be a different kind of process for them, or would you use kind of the same thing? Like, would somebody that is wanting to give up slowly, would you like let them kind of still drink, but then, well, not let them, but say, hey, maybe do this, drink a little bit, and then kind of slowly wean off? And if somebody wanted to completely stop altogether, would it be just cold turkey?
It'd be very similar where let's use the first person. If someone basically says, I just want to drink less, then that's where I say, okay, where are you at today in terms of how much you're drinking? And where do you want to be like 3 or 6 months? And have them answer it for me. They basically want to say, oh, I only want to drink with friends, or I don't want to drink alone at home, or I only want to drink at special occasions. And what does that look like? And then using these tools to help get them there. So again, how to process feelings, how to allow the urge, how to use a drink plan and planning drinking and really exploring that. And then if they didn't follow their drink plan, let's do the course correction, write it down and on. If someone's like, nope, I want to go cold turkey, I just want to stop. It's like, okay, we can do a lot of the same coaching though. We wouldn't use the drink plan per se, because again, the plan would be like 0 drinks, but that idea of, okay, what happens when you have an event coming up where you're going to be surrounded by alcohol, or maybe you think it's going to be a stressful event? Let's do some coaching and some planning around that. And I use those with people that just want to drink less as well. But we wouldn't have to go necessarily into the drink plan. But they may, if someone's like, yeah, I want to go cold turkey, they still very much have the urge that's coming up. And then it's like, okay, let's really look at that. What is the pain? What is the urge coming from? Is it, again, what's the trigger? Is it pain? Is it in the sense of like emotional pain? Where is that coming from? Like if they were already able to do it, they would have done it. So it's like, if they're looking for help with stopping completely, it's really looking at, okay, what's going on underneath, and coaching around that.
Yeah.
Does that answer?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I was trying to think about the willpower scenario of somebody, when they're trying to give up cold turkey, like completely. And then they're sitting there like, oh, like they're trying to, like you said, driving past the liquor store, white knuckling, but you could also be doing that like holding yourself to the couch so you don't get up and go to the liquor store, or the
Well, and that's
bottle
where
shop.
learning to allow the urge, that's where processing that feeling would come in. That's where, like when we have an emotion, we can either resist it, which is willpower. We can react to it, which is like giving in. We can avoid it, which is like, I'm just going to do something else, or I'm not going to pay attention, and then allowing it. So again, that's where not using willpower. It's like if someone feels the urge to drink, helping them learn how to just sit with it and let the beach ball come above the water and just allow it and let it in.
Yeah.
And just sit with it and then see what comes up.
Yeah. And you mentioned something before, which I think is what you're talking about, is sitting in that discomfort.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. That is exactly it. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. And that's the thing, is if someone has that urge to drink, like I said, someone who wants to go cold turkey, and then they're like, okay, I'm doing it. I start tomorrow. And then it's like, all right, here's how you would process an urge. You would sit with it and just let it come up and be like, what's coming up for me? And getting curious and asking questions like, what am I thinking? What's coming up for me? What is going on right now? What is triggering me? And asking them from a place of compassion. Like one of them is like, what's the matter, love? But doing that from a place of compassion, not like, what's wrong with you? Why can't you do this?
Yeah.
It's just getting curious and exploring. And that's where like so many people will say, I'm so afraid to face my grief or my pain or my fear because I'm afraid if I go down that hole, I'll never come out of it. So that's why they resist, and helping them learn that you will be able to go down, be there in the depression or the anxiety or the pain or the grief, and sit with it and come out of it. Like there was a stat that I heard recently in the last few months where they said a feeling typically only lasts 60 to 90 seconds.
Yeah.
If someone can sit with a feeling for 2 minutes, generally it's going to pass. And most people are like, oh my gosh. Yeah. And sometimes it's like, if something truly lasts like about 10 minutes, that's even about the extreme. Like if someone's really like, this is a real deep, intense emotional and pain, generally it's still going to pass after about 10 minutes. And that's for like something super deep. So that's where the discomfort comes in. If someone's like, I'm willing to be uncomfortable for a couple minutes and just sit with this and not react. But that's a skill. Most people don't know how to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. Did that answer it a little better?
100%.
About the difference between the willpower and allowing the urge. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I just want to share for the listeners, when I feel like, I want to watch porn, I think about, why do I want to watch porn? And I'm like, well, okay, I'm feeling a disconnect right now. I'm feeling lonely. Not feeling connection with people. Okay, so what do I need to do to feel that connection right now, so that I don't go and just watch porn to run away? And then, thinking of, like you said, it's not just about sitting in the discomfort, but asking the questions, asking myself, well, what can I do right now to feel connected? So usually it's like, reach out to somebody and send them a voice note on social media, right? Ask how they're going.
It's even before we get to actions, it's what's the problem with feeling lonely?
Yeah.
I mean, why are you making loneliness a problem?
For sure.
And so that's even that. And so that's really where I go with clients is, okay, I feel lonely. I feel disconnected. What am I making this mean about me? Like maybe a thought is I should be connected, or my parents told me you should always be connected. And it's like, well, loneliness is part of life. Loneliness is part of the 50-50. And that's where, okay, I feel lonely and it's okay.
Yeah. 100%.
And that's where then it's not even having to do that action. And you can still do the action of connecting with somebody, but really helping someone realize they don't have to do anything. They can actually just sit there and be like, I'm going to be lonely and it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
And that's the sitting in discomfort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. And I think that is a really beautiful place to end this podcast. So, But I do want to ask you, if this resonates for people and they want to, cut down on drinking or give up drinking, whatever it may be, how can they find more about you, and how can they kind of book in with you?
My business profile is over on LinkedIn. So if you go to LinkedIn and you just type in my name, I'm hoping you'll have my name spelled out, Leigh Schutzky, in your podcast notes.
Yeah, it will
but
be.
But and my contact info is in LinkedIn. So I have an email and I have a website, but getting me on LinkedIn is probably the easiest way. And that way, then you can see my bio and things that I posted. But all my business stuff is over there.
Yeah, awesome. I'll link it in the the notes anyway, so people don't have to try and type it in. They can just click a link. Yeah. So
Well, and I always, if someone's like, hey, I want to learn more, I always offer a no obligation consult call. And that's where I not sit down virtually on Zoom, but and really talk with them about, okay, where are you today? Where do you want to be? And then this is the roadmap I would suggest to get you there. And then we just see if that's a fit for them or not. So that's really what that no obligation consult call is about, is where are you today? Where would you rather be? And okay, here's a roadmap based on what you're telling me of what we could do to get you there.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for joining me, Leigh. It's been great.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm really glad we were able to do this, Ant. It's great seeing you. This is awesome.
Yeah, you too. All right. Thank you. And there you have it, folks. Another episode in the books. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did enjoy it, could you please click the like button wherever you are watching or listening to this, and also hit subscribe. And if you wanted to leave a comment, that would also be great. And one other thing that I would really like is if you could give it a 5-star review, if that's possible, and also a written review. That would be really, really great, because it'll help me push it out to more people. And one last thing, guys, I would like to extend an invitation to you guys about joining my free Facebook group. So if this is the first time you're listening, I am a life coach and a healer. So I help people overcome pain, past pain that is unresolved, and I help them find themselves and build their confidence. So if that's something that you're looking to get into, I have a free Facebook group. I will be leaving the link in the notes section or the bio, whatever. If you want to join that, you can join that. There's a guide section in there, and there is some free material that you can go through where you can start to learn how to overcome pain from your past and find yourself again and rebuild your confidence and all that kind of stuff. So, I would love for you to join that. And if you have any questions, you can also reach out to me via the through that group, or you can also message me on Instagram. So once again, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode, and thank you very much for watching and listening and being here. I bloody love you all, and have a great day. Bye.